Good morning, USA, and welcome to another episode of the Bernie or Bust Show. Unshaved, unbathed, uncouth, unedited, unscripted, among other things. Hope you're having a good start to your week. Let's check out The Daily Show. Trevor Noah, brilliant young voice. I tried to look up his talent agency, and I don't see its UTA or CAA, but I also noticed that it's in Los Angeles. So I was interested because this seems like pretty unbiased reporting from a more corporate place. Check out this interview with Anand Giridharadas.
There are many billionaires who have come out publicly and said, hey, we should be paying more tax as billionaires. We want to be taxed higher. Like Warren Buffett has come out many times saying, guys, my personal assistant pays a higher tax rate than I do, which is not fair. So if the billionaires are saying we should be paying more tax, then why would you say that it's a charade, or why do you say that they're part of the problem?
Those billionaires are saying the right thing. Now, what is interesting, some of the people you mentioned, if you double click on some of what they actually do in their life, what they do is they say, we should pay higher income tax. Right. They call their accountant immediately when they're off the CNBC air. And they say, hey, Bob, just make sure I have only wealth accumulation this year, capital gains, no income increase. Because you can do that when you're rich. You can just shuffle things around. So, if you look at Warren Buffett and others, they say higher income taxes, but they don't have a lot of income. But because
their income is all capital gains, and their capital gains taxes are low. To be fair, though, I've heard Warren Buffett say that his capital gains taxes should be higher. So Warren Buffett actually does say the right things. And then you contrast that with what Bernie Sanders says, that billionaires have no right to exist. There was a funny show that The Hill excerpted. The Crystal Ball was and Sagar were laughing about, where they had these billionaires sitting at a table drinking wine. I don't know if there was cheese, but they were saying that Bernie Sanders didn't have a right to exist. There you have the struggle, the epic struggle. Well, let's hear what this guy's gonna say.
Put it over there in the investment pile.
Your shares give you the money and that's taxed at a lower rate.
Yes. And I think what we don't realize in this country, now we're heading into the election season, and we're starting to have a bunch of candidates who in various ways would at least gesture to what I'm talking about, right? Inequality is bad, we got to rebuild the middle class. But part of why I wrote the book, and part of why I hope it's relevant as we head into the election, is a lot of the people who sound similar when they're talking about fixing this problem are actually quite different. And I think of the book as a...
He's saying they make gestures in the right direction, but they don't really have an intention to fix it. And that's Elizabeth Warren. If he doesn't come right out and say her name, he's talking directly about people such as Elizabeth Warren.
Set of infrared lenses to actually understand who's peddling real change and who's peddling fake change. Because you look at people who say, gosh, we got to rebuild the middle class, but who also say, as Joe Biden did, nothing's going to fundamentally change for the billionaires in this country. I just have to say, that is an incoherent, and I don't just mean rambling incoherent, as is the Biden way, but is an incoherent, intellectually incoherent theory. Because in this moment, I'm not saying all moments, but in this moment, the people up above are up above because they are stepping on people down below. And the people down below are down below because they are being stepped on. And you cannot say that I want to help the people down below in a way that will change nothing for the people standing on their necks. The same way you couldn't address feudal England, you couldn't address the Downton Abbey world without dealing with why the Granthams are the only people who own that damn castle. So big, right? You couldn't deal with slavery without making things worse for the white plantation owners. You can't, frankly, look at the Me Too world. You can't make things better for women in this world without, frankly, reducing the power of men to have impunity in so many of the spaces you and I and everybody else operate in. Right. Real change involves the loss of power. And at the heart of this book is the idea.
Real change involves the loss of power. So some people who have power now are not going to want to give it up. And it doesn't matter how much Elizabeth wags her finger in their faces, they're not going to willingly give it up. It will have to be taken from them. There aren't many people saying that. Elizabeth certainly isn't saying that.
That there has been an ideology for the last 40 years that is the ideology of win-win. We can empower the least among us. We can help people in Africa. We can help people in Appalachia, and no one has to suffer. The rich people don't have to pay any more taxes. They don't have to be regulated anymore. And it is a lie. It is a lie. The only change worth doing in a moment like this with such inequity is change that will necessarily make the plutocrats less powerful. The answer to a winners-take-all world.
He says something that's true and not true at the same time, because he says win-win isn't possible. And you look at the plutocrats, you do have to remove them from power, but not because they couldn't continue to have a lot. What they can continue to have a lot, but what they can't continue to do is exploit those underneath them. Now, it's dangerous, I know, because he's more right than wrong. But there is a way to have enough, to have a lot. I mean, to be millionaires instead of billionaires. There's a way for them to have a lot. But what they can't continue to have is the power to set the system the way it is. It's like the Monopoly game. We've talked about this before. The Monopoly game where once they own Park Place and Boardwalk, they just stick it to everyone else. We have to redesign the game so that everyone can have enough. And he's slamming into the idea that will be unpopular, but he may not even be completely right about it. What we could do is continue to have people own Boardwalk and Park Place without charging any rent as people go by. We will take away money. Money equals power. So you're not going to take away their power to rig the system and harm everyone unless you take their money away from them. But what we really, now this is pie in the sky. This is kind of, you can make your, oh, what a cute little snowflake comments if you want to, but the value system, it's why I teach instead of, that's why I'm a teacher instead of something else I could have been. I believe that values can change, that values can be taught, that people's values are malleable, especially when people are younger. But I think anyone's values can change. And that is not a widely held belief. Some people believe that once your values are set, then they're set and they'll never change. And I think that's what he's probably assuming about billionaires. And he may be right. But if we could change people's values, for example, if we get people in general to believe that other people's children deserve a good education, and they deserve to live in decent housing, and they deserve affordable health care, and deserve not to be profiled by the police, and on and on. My daughter and I were chatting on Facebook this morning, and her summation was that there are two kinds of people: people who give a shit about other people outside of their own circle, and people who don't. And I think she's right on. This guy, I can't take away anything from what he's saying based on the world we live in, but I hope for a different world where people's values could be excellent, could be supportable, non-exploitative, whether or not they had billions of dollars. And you can laugh if you want to. I understand that sounds a little silly.
Is almost logically a world in which the winners take less. And as you said, they're not going to sign up for that. Right. It's us acting together, joining things, getting involved in democracy that are going to take change back from the charade.
I have to say that was a very good episode of a fairly corporate TV show. I'm going to look into this show more. That Trevor Noah is a South African comedian. It's interesting that all the best news sources pretty much are comedians and ex-MSNBC hosts like Crystal Ball. It's probably the best thing from this show that you can get is a steady diet of news sources that aren't in the mainstream. But of all the ones that I show you, that one right there was probably the closest to the corporate controlled media. And so I want to applaud Trevor Noah for allowing this message to get out. And I definitely am going to buy this book by Anand Giridharadas. Real change requires reducing plutocrats' power. That's not the name of his book, actually. I saw there was a little blurb in the show. We can go back and watch that. And you can see right at the beginning the name of his book.
There are many billionaires who have come out publicly and said, hey, we should be paying more tax as billionaires. We want to be taxed higher. Like Warren Buffett has come out many times saying, guys, my personal assistant pays a higher tax rate than I do, which is not fair. So if the billionaires are saying we should be paying more tax, then why would you say that it's a charade, or why do you say that they're part of the problem?
Those billionaires are saying the right thing.
There it is.
Now, what is interesting,
Winners take all. So we definitely got to read that book. Among all the other things that we have to do because we're working so hard because the plutocrats own our lives. But I'll leave you to ponder that. I hope you have a very good week and keep on burning.